The idea that foster kids are broken, I don't think that we're something to be fixed. I think it's just something that we're people that need to be worked with. My name is Layla. I'm 18 years old and I'm currently a student at Cal State Long Beach. I lived with my grandparents for most of my life, and I don't really know my bio dad, so I never had like a real relationship with like a father figure, so he was my father figure. And my grandma and I were close when I was little, but as I started to get older, we kind of drifted apart. But my grandpa, he was always there. All of my fondest memories, I feel like, are with him. When I was a sophomore, he got cancer and he passed away. And so it was just me and my grandma. We had like a big house, and she was stressed of like how she was gonna like keep paying for it and all like the financial things. And I was just totally shocked that I like lost the one person in my life that I trusted and that I respected more than anyone. Eventually it led to my suicidal ideation, and I went into the hospital twice. And the second time I went into the hospital, they decided it wasn't a right fit for me to live there, and I didn't want to go back. And so I went straight from the hospital into the foster system. It was very scary. Like I had no idea like what the foster system was like. Having foster parents and not having my grandfather, it was very difficult for me to follow her rules and fit into their family, because they weren't him and they were never gonna be him. I honestly wasn't ready to have new parents again. I wanted to just be on my own, because I had kind of accepted that that's how it was going to be. And that's when they wanted Olive Crest to come out and help me move to a new placement. That was when I realized that they really are there for me. It's a program that's meant to help the kids that are in different foster placements. My foster family, they seem to really want me to be a part of their forever home. And it's gonna take me a while to fully accept that and to fully trust that no matter what, I'm gonna be a part of their family. But for right now, this is my home.
Obviously, we've all got questions for God. But as it turns out, he's got questions for us too. Why these questions, though?
So God's got questions. God's got questions. Today's question we're diving into is, do you want to get better? That's the question for today. Do you want to get better? As we've learned the last couple of weeks, is questions were used to help people dive deep into their heart, into their mind, into their life, to figure out where are you, what's going on in your life, are there areas in your life that you can use improvements? And so this question of do you want to get better, it was actually a question that Jesus asked someone who was very sick, asked someone who needed healing, asked someone who needed a miracle in their life. And so Jesus asked this question to someone that I would say it was obvious he wanted to get better, but yet Jesus still specifically asked him, do you want to get well? Do you want to get better? So as we go through the message today, I want you to ask yourself, is there an area in your life you would like to see better? Is there an area in your life you would like to see changed? Is there an area in your life that you would want God to create a miracle or a change in your life? Now, I know for sure, if you ask me, the answer to that is absolutely. Of course I want to see areas in my life changed. I want to see my kids changed. Start with them, Lord. And I want to see my life changed. I would love to see my health get better. I mean, that would be really awesome if I can go above average on the health so that when I climb stairs and wherever I'm going, I don't feel like I'm going to pass out. That would be awesome. That'd be really awesome. And so it would be really good to get to that place of above average health. And so I would love for that to happen. But you know what would need to happen in order for me to do that is that I have to probably give up sleep so I can get my butt to the gym every morning. I'd probably have to change what I eat and drink, which I love food. And so that's a huge sacrifice. And so when I start to think about the changes that I would need to make in order to see these things happen, I start to wonder, like, do I really want to see that change as much as I want to? And so I know if I was to ask you, are there areas in your life that you want to see changed? You'd say absolutely. Absolutely there is. My kids, they tell me all the time, they want to see their grades changed. They want to see their grades better. And so when I tell them, like, okay, what are you going to do to change them? I'm like, oh, nothing. I just want to see them better. It's like, oh, no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So this story in the book of John, chapter 5, it's Jesus walking into the city of Jerusalem, and it was during a time that was actually a festival. Now, it doesn't say what festival it was, but biblical scholars do believe it possibly was the festival, the day of Pentecost. And so since today is the day of Pentecost, we're just going to say it probably was the day of Pentecost, okay? So John chapter 5, it says, after this, there was a Jewish feast. Doesn't say which one, but we all can assume which one it was, right? And Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool called Bethesda. And what this is it was covered by 5 walkways, which is patios, with pillars covered the pools. And it said a great number of sick, blind, lame, and paralyzed people were lying in these walkways. Okay, so let me tell you what's happening right here. Let me give you a little history of what you're reading about. So Jesus is walking to Jerusalem on a Jewish holiday, on a festival, which we can assume which one it was, which means there was more people than normal. Festivals drew crowds. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have a party where there's going to be more people than normal, right? So in festivals, there was thousands of people. And so during this time, he walked into Jerusalem during a festival, and there was always, just by the pool of Bethesda, there was always a group of people by this pool. And the reason why they were by this pool is because they were sick, they were crippled, they were paralyzed, had some sort of sickness or something in their life that they needed changed. There was something in their life that they wanted healing from. And so legends share that this pool, that at some point an angel would stir the water, and when the water would get stirred, the first person to jump into the water would be healed. And so this is why there was people gathered around this pool of Bethesda, okay, which means the house of mercy. And so they were wanting to see a change happen in their life. And they were hoping to be the first one into the pool when this would happen. So to give you a visual, it's hard to imagine what this pool looked like because this is a picture of it as it looks like today. So this is thousands of years ago, right? But this is what it looks like today. So it's hard to imagine what this pool looked like. These pools were actually, there was 2 pools, and they were separated by pillars, by these patios, and these pools were huge. And the equivalent of the size of these, it's like a soccer field. So it was like 2 pools the size of a soccer field, okay? Now, this next picture is not a real picture. It's just a visual of what it possibly looked like, okay? This is a visual of what it possibly looked like. Staircases going down into water, people surrounded all around the pool, hoping to be the first ones to jump into the water when the water was stirred. Why were they there? They were there because they wanted to see a change in their life. They wanted to see a change in their life. They wanted to see a healing. Now, let me share with you the part of this story that seems like a rhetorical question. Now, a man was there who had been disabled for 38 years. 38 years he had been disabled. 38 years sitting by this pool, hoping and waiting to be the first one into the water so that he can be healed, so that his life can be changed, so that his whole world could be different. Now, I don't know about you, but I've actually lived 38 years. And next week, it's going to be 38 years plus 10. So just imagine for a second how much life has changed in 38 years. 38 years ago, I was about 10 years old. A lot has changed in that time. Phones were not in existence. Smartphones didn't exist. Cell phones didn't exist. I don't even think wireless phones existed at the time. There was the cords that you had to like walk around, like the living room and walk around the house, hoping that you had the longest cord possible. All the young people are like, what's a cord on a phone? Listen, young people, before the day that your guys' era, we used to be tied to a phone that had a string that was hooked into the wall. So a lot has changed. Technology has changed. I think TVs were black and white. They weren't even color yet. Computers, it was rare to have a computer in a home. If you had a friend with a computer, it was like, oh, man, those guys have a computer. A computer in their home. That was all rare. So 38 years, a lot changes in 38 years. So imagine this man who, for 38 years, is sitting by this pool and not leaving. Like he's incapable of walking around, obviously. He can't go and come. It wasn't like he'd go home and then come back the next day. He was there for 38 years. And in 38 years, his whole world has changed. So all he knows is his surroundings. All he knows is the people around him who are all sick. All he knows is to be sitting by this pool and hope that someone will feed him. And for 38 years, it has happened. So somewhere, somehow, some way, he was being fed and he was kept alive. And for 38 years, this is all he knows. This is his friends, his community, his family, his surroundings. Is disconnected from society, disconnected from the world, has no clue how education has changed, how technology has changed, how people have changed, how careers have changed, jobs have changed. So much has changed in 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lying there, and when he realized that the man had been disabled a long time already, he said to him, "Do you want to become well?" Now think about that. Is Jesus really asking him, like, hey, you're sick. Do you want to be healed? Hey, you're not feeling well. Do you want me to heal you? Do you really think that's what the question is right here? For 30 years, he's been hoping that he'd be the first one in the water, and it hasn't happened. Someone's always beat him. And so for 38 years, all of a sudden, Jesus comes to him and says, hey, do you want to become well? That to me is a rhetorical question. I think there's a deeper meaning behind the question. And here's what I think the deeper meaning is. The deeper meaning is this. It's saying, hey, do you want your life changed? Do you want your whole world to be different? Are you ready and willing to change your entire life? Because if I make you well and I heal you, you're going to have to get up and you're going to have to walk out and go back into society. You're going to have to leave your community of all you've known for 38 years. You're going to have to leave the people you've been sitting by for 38 years, and then you're going to have to get back into the world. So when Jesus is asking him, do you want me to make you well? He's really saying, are you ready to get back into the world and have your life be completely different? Because your whole world's about to change. And so then, as you've ever imagined, when you've had a conversation with someone saying, hey, do you really want to see this change in your life? Here's what happens when I ask my kids, like, hey, do you really want to see the grades in your school go up? They say, yeah, but, and here it comes. The sick man answered, said to him, sir, I have no one to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up. And so Jesus is saying, okay, hold on. I asked you if you want me to make you well. Do you want me to change your life? And then he says, well, no one can take me to the water when the water is stirred. And he's like, well, I didn't ask you if anybody can take you to the water. I asked you if you wanted your life changed. He says, well, while I'm trying to get into the water, someone else goes before me. So then Jesus is in here like, I don't know if you're understanding the question here. I'm asking you, are you ready for your life to be changed? And what he's doing is he's going to the excuses of why his life has not been changed, which I'm sure we all can have reasons on why there hasn't been change in the areas in our life that we would want to see change. I can give you a lot of reasons. Cheeseburgers, fries, wings. There's a lot of reasons why, right? And so sure enough, you come to the realization that Jesus is willing to make a change in your life, but often we're rehearsing the reasons on why we're not ready for the change. And here's what I want you to understand. It's hard to find a solution if you've stopped believing even one exists. It is hard to find a solution for the change that you're looking for in your life if you've stopped believing that there's even a solution for what's happening in your life, that there's even a way out. Because for 38 years, this is all I've ever known. This is all I've ever experienced. So when Jesus asked him if he wanted to be healed, what he's really asking is, are you willing to do what it takes to be healed? Are you willing to do what it takes to be healed? Are you willing to allow your world to be turned upside down? Are you willing to change the habits that you've developed over the last 30 years? Are you willing to think differently? Are you willing to talk differently? Are you willing to change your routine? Are you willing to change your lifestyle? Are you willing to change your heart? Are you willing to change your mind? Because for 38 years, you've known one way. And if you want to see the change, there's going to need to be some changes that follow. Now, many of you probably know this. Back in the day, I used to be an athlete. Not a very good one, but I was one, okay? And so one of the sports that I did in high school and college was a sport called wrestling. And where's my OH buddy? OH? Yeah, that's right. That's right. For those of you who know our Ohio campus, they would know that. And Ohio, whenever I go to my Ohio campus, this is just an Ohio thing, okay? This has nothing to do with my message. You're just taking me on a tangent. So whenever I go to my Ohio campus, I love to stand up in front and I say, OH! And then everybody shouts out, I-O. They shout out I-O. This is a normal thing in Ohio, right? If you ever go to Ohio State or anywhere near Ohio State, or you're just walking around in a crowd, it doesn't even matter if it's a ball game or anything. If you're at the mall, you say, O-H. It's automatic, okay? So anyways, back in the day of my athletic days, I used to do this thing called wrestling in high school and college. And what I learned through this sport was how to cut weight. I learned how to cut weight. And so here's what that means. Exactly. Rice Cakes was my friend. And so so you had a date when you were going to compete, and there was a time for you to weigh in, and then you had to weigh a certain amount on that day. So you had to be at that weight or lower. So I was overweight usually every week by like 13 pounds. And so then every Monday I would show up and I would have to cut 13 pounds by Thursday. And so every week I did this. And so I actually have the ability to be able to do that. Like if I wanted to lose 13 pounds between now and next Sunday, I really could. But you know what would happen on Monday? All 13 pounds, I'd put those bad boys on right. I'd put that weight right back on. Why? Why would that happen? Why wouldn't I just keep the 13 pounds off? Because in order for me to do that, I would have to change my entire life. I'd have to change my friends. I'd have to change what I ate and what I drank. I'd have to change. Everything would have to change in my life in order for me to keep that change in my life. So the aha moment right now is I have to pick healthy friends. I just lost all my friends here. Okay, so this is what Jesus is asking him is, are you willing to do what it takes to be healed? And so sure enough, this man was like, yes. 38 years, I'm ready for a change. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I don't quite understand what it's all going to look like, but I know that I cannot live like this anymore. So then Jesus tells him in verse 8, says, Jesus said to him, stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. Here's what I want you to understand. There's several examples in the Bible where Jesus changed someone's life. And almost every time, it required that individual to do something in order for that change. When Jesus said, "Do you want your life to be changed?" He said, "Yeah. Stand up, pick up your mat, and walk." Here's what you need to do. You need to stand up, you need to pick up your bedding, and you need to walk out these doors, and you need to start your new life. And he said, don't look back. Don't come back to the sick pool. Don't come back to this area. Go start your new life. Go learn what you need to learn to get adapted to your new environment so that you don't look back. And so before I go further, just so you understand, Jesus actually broke a law in this moment. This was considered the day of the Sabbath. And the day of the Sabbath in the Jewish religion, you don't do anything. You don't walk past a certain amount of steps. You don't carry a bedding. You don't do any of that because it's considered like the holy day. Even to this day, if you ever go to Jerusalem and you're there on the Sabbath, you're not even allowed to press an elevator button. Because if you do that, then electricity is triggered. Ultimately, the elevator would move, which would be considered work. So they were very, very, very religious about this day. And Jesus was helping this individual understand that in order for him to receive the miracle from God, he was going to have to do something about it. And he was going to have to stay focused on who was speaking to him. The Son of God, Jesus himself, God himself. He created the Sabbath not because of the laws or religions or the traditions. He created the Sabbath so that we would understand the importance of rest, that we wouldn't make it a religion, that we would make it a life where we can operate and be connected to God. That's what the purpose of the Sabbath was. The purpose of the Sabbath was for us not to become workaholics and to find our identity and our worth in our career or our finances. The purpose of the Sabbath was for us to understand that God exists and God is real and our worth and our identity is through him. And that he can do more with 6 days a week and 1 day of rest in him versus on our own 7 days a week of working and working and working and working and putting God aside. And so what the Sabbath actually represented a day of being connected to your Creator. A day of understanding who God is in your life. A day for you to be reminded of where your worth and your identity should come from. Not in yourself, but in God. And so there was a lot to this message of stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. And a big part of that was, like I said earlier, it was he had a job to do. If you wanted to see your life changed, there's something for you to do here. If you want to see your world change, there's a part for you to do here. Stand up, pick up your mat, walk, get out those doors, and don't come back is what Jesus was telling him. And so throughout the Bible, you see this over and over. Often the miracle you need hinges on your willingness to participate. Often the miracle you need is really dependent on your willingness to participate in the change that you want to see happen in your life. All through the Bible, you see in Mark chapter 10, verse 21, there's a rich guy. And in this verse, a rich guy who was very, very wealthy, extremely wealthy, who no longer needed wealth for the rest of his life, was financially taken care of, but he lacked something. He lacked fulfillment in his heart. And so he came to Jesus and he said, Jesus, what must I do? What must I do to find that fulfillment in my life? And then Jesus said, hey, why don't you sell everything you have and give it away? And then this man was like, whoa. You don't understand. I'm looking for fulfillment. I'm not looking to do anything about it. I was just wanting you to give me fulfillment and not change my life. And Jesus is like, I can't do that. You have a part in this life change. And in John chapter 8, there was a woman who was caught in the act of adultery. And then Jesus saved her life because there were so many hypocrites and judgmental people that were ready to stone her. And Jesus came in and saved her life, forgave her, saved her life, forgave her, and said, go and sin no more. She had a part to do. She had a part to do for that life change. Luke chapter 17, there was a man with a skin disease, and those days that skin disease was called leprosy. And so Jesus healed him. And then Jesus said, go to the priest and show yourself, because this will be the final step towards your cleansing. And so over and over you see Jesus telling people, if you want to see change, I can help you. But here's your part. And I'm sure we've all been a part of that conversation with God. God, I want to see change in my life. And God has said, absolutely, I'll definitely help you. And here's what you need to do about it. And so I know for sure that I myself have created barriers in my life from allowing God to do more. And these are the moments where I ask myself, God, what are the barriers that I'm keeping up in front of me that is not allowing you to work more through me or to change my life more? So what is it for you? What have you determined that it's a price too high for your own healing or for your own change? What is it you won't do to release the miracle God's reserved for you? What is it you won't do to release the miracle that God has reserved for you? Because as I said earlier, there are certain things you can't do without God, and there's certain things that God won't do without you, and both of these can exist at the same time. In John chapter 5, verse 9, Jesus said, immediately the man was healed and picked up his mat and started walking. You know, I love this verse, but there's a word in here that I hate. Immediately. Because when things don't happen immediately in my life, I get really frustrated and I start wondering, where are you, God? Because when I read your word, I see immediate. And then when I ask for that change in my life, I don't see it immediately. But then Jesus says, I can forgive you immediately, but the process of healing is a process. So God's forgiveness happens in an instant, but our healing is a process. Our healing is an actual process. The man who was healed after 38 years, he got up, walked out, and had to start a new process for his life. He had to start a new way of thinking. He had to start a new way of living. He had to start a new way of talking, a new way of viewing of life, because his whole world for 38 years was around that pool. And now all of a sudden, he's outside the doors, and life is completely different. He had to start a new change. And so I know that it's hard to start a new change because change is hard. But here's what I know. With God's help, we can see God move in ways that we could not do it on our own. With God's help, we will choose what we want most over what we want now. And here's what I want you to tell yourself today. With God's help, I will choose what I want most over what I want now. When should we start this? When should this begin? Psalms chapter 119, verse 60 said, I keep commands eagerly without delay. Immediately. This is the immediate part. And then as we walk out the doors today, it's the process of healing, of developing and keeping the new habits of allowing God to continue to make those changes in our life. So today what I want to do is I just want to pray for you, because I know there's people in the room that want to see change in their life. I know there's people in the room that it may not be something you've been struggling with for 38 years, but maybe it's been 2 years, maybe it's been 5 years, maybe it's been 20 years, or maybe it has been 38 years. But at the end of the day, you want to see God move in a way like he's never before. There might be an area in your life that is still causing a restriction between you and the power of God and the power in your life to see something better and to see something change. The question at the very beginning was, do you want to get better? And if you want to get better, I want to pray for you today so that God can fill you with his Spirit and give you the strength and the courage and the power so that when you walk out the doors, you can have the power of God walking alongside of you so that you don't feel alone. So I want to ask for everyone to bow their heads. South Hills Church, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for watching our service online. Whether you're watching it for the first time or you're watching it again because you enjoyed the service so much from the weekend, I'd like to take a moment and dive into our giving. Every week we give people the opportunity to give back and give to the local church so that God can continue to bless your lives and bless your finances. Here at South Hills, we believe that everything comes from God. We believe that He's the one that chose us and brought us into this world, gave us our gifts and talents and abilities. And I just want you to know that when we give, we are giving back what God has already given to us. If you've ever seen any of our envelopes at a South Hills campus, you'll see on there that it says, every week at South Hills, your generosity is giving people the opportunity to live a better story. And there's a scripture on there in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21 that says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I want to encourage you today to click down below and set up your giving, whether it's for the first time or whether you're doing reoccurring giving. We have 4 ways to give here at South Hills. 1, you can do it in person at any of our campuses through an envelope. Or 2, you can actually text any amount that you would like to 84321. And the 3rd way is to download our Church Center app. I encourage you to do this one because the Church Center app gives you opportunity to stay connected with our church and your campuses. It's a great tool and resource for you to know what's going on. And the 4th way to give is to give online. You can go to southhills.org/give and you can set up your giving there. Whether you're a guest of our church or whether you are a member of our church, or whether you simply just like to watch our services, I encourage you to trust God with your finances so that He can bless and anoint your finances, and you can be trusting God in this journey of living life to the fullest. I love you, and thank you for watching our online service today.